let's. I'm not sure. Where's my we'll see. So we are learning today Siman Shin Kafchet 328 with the hope that we will never have to use this Siman. It talks about someone who's not feeling well on Shabbat. Dinei chole b'Shabbat. So that's the topic for today. Someone who's not feeling well. And the halacha divides someone who's not feeling well to three categories. Three. They say in the army, in the IDF, I'm not sure how it is in the United States military, that everything divides to three. So three categories. The first category is someone who's chole sheyesh bo sakana. He has danger in him. We'll explain it soon. The second category is someone who has is sick, is not feeling well. Okay, also that we will define later. And the third category is someone who is called in the halacha mitchazek veholech kebari. He maybe has a slight headache, but he's walking like normal. Look at him. Maybe he looks a bit tired, but he's walking around and he's doing shopping and he's going to work. That's mitchazek veholech kebari. But he still has some kind of pain. So these are the three categories, and we will very soon define them. Now, before we define them, many things in Chazal, we are used to today very exact measurements. How much water was there in this bottle of water when you bought it?
It had less now than it did when I bought it, but let's see, probably like 500 milliliters.
500 milliliters, right? 500 milliliters. And probably it was almost exact, somewhere between 495 and 505 milliliters. Yeah, that's if they had 480, that's already a problem, and you can maybe check them or sue them and ask for a new one. Today we are used to very exact measurements. In the past, when they built, so also they used exact measurements. Look at the kotel. It's amazing how they did the kotel, right? All the stones have exact grade, and but the regular people, it was very hard to have exact, and it's something that's hard for us to move from the thinking of the exact definitions to something which isn't so exact. And we have also here defining someone who's not feeling well. So someone who is in danger. Okay, let's say now he had a car accident or some accident and he's bleeding very much. And if he won't get to hospital in the next few hours, he could die. That's for sure someone who has chole sheyesh bo sakana. He's in danger, right? The halacha, there's a Mishnah in Masechet Yoma. The word pikuach nefesh, pikuach nefesh. Where does it come, pikuach nefesh? It's a shir in English. It's not a shir in Hebrew, right? But where does the word pikuach nefesh come from? Well, it's in English. It's an English shir, so obviously it's maybe a harder question. But it comes from the word mefakhin et hagal. If a house fell on someone, you pick up remove the rocks and stones and all the things that fell on him. To check to see if there's someone underneath it to check. So from here comes the word pikuach nefesh. And the Mishnah said that even if there's a safek, you aren't sure if he's a Jewish or a non-Jewish person. You aren't sure if he's alive or dead. You aren't even sure if he's there or not there. So if there's a safek. And it seems from the Gemara that even when you have all of those sfekot together, it's not just one question. You have here three questions. First, you aren't sure if it's a Jewish person or a non-Jewish person. Second, you aren't even sure if he's there or not there. And third, even if he's there and even if he's Jewish, you aren't even sure if he's alive or dead. In all those cases, what do? You check, you do pikuach nefesh. Okay, you move the stones, mefakhin et hagal. So when we have here something which is defined as pikuach nefesh, that's something very important to know also for Yom Kippur. It's not that we need to know that for sure he's in danger. There's a question here of danger. As soon as there's a question of danger and it's in front of us, so you can do things on Shabbat, even if it's Isurim Deoraita, even if it's from Deoraita. That's the first.
You have suffix. What if you know he's a non-Jew?
So if you know it's a non-Jew, that already brings a question. Usually you don't Mechalel Shabbat for a non-Jewish person. The logic of it is that even for a Jewish person, Shabbat is very important. How can you? Shabbat is like, that's maybe one of the basic ideas of the Jewish faith, that we now, by keeping Shabbat, we now testify that Hashem created the world. Someone who doesn't keep Shabbat for many, many aspects It's considered as this is a mumar. Okay, you can't drink his wine sometimes, depending. It's quite serious. So for a Jewish person, we have a pasuk v'chai b'hem. For a non-Jewish person, we don't have the pasuk. That's the theoretical answer. Lemase befoal. Okay, you see many Jews in the States. They work as doctors, and they work sometimes also on Shabbat. And the patients aren't Jewish people. And the idea, the reason for that is, first, if you're a doctor and you can try not to work on Shabbat, that's the best. But the idea that you can sometimes, in many cases even, do a malacha on Shabbat to save a non-Jewish person is because if now we want save the lives of the non-Jewish people, they want to save our lives. So it's in the end, it has a wider effect than just this case here. What can we do when we have pikuach nefesh? So the answer is we can do everything. We can do everything. If it's something urgent, do everything without a shinui. Just do it. Do it now. If it's not so urgent, so you can do it with a shinui. Okay, change a bit. Use your left hand. If it's urgent, do everything without any shinui. Don't even think of doing a shinui. Says the poskim. Because if you now start using your left hand and driving slow, it might die or go into danger. So only if you know that you can have a bit of time. So that's do a shinui. Once there was a kid who was staying at our house. He was jumping. He got cut here on the forehead. I took him to a doctor here and asked him, he's a religious, frum guy. I respect his halacha point of view. I asked him, you're a doctor. I'm not a doctor. Do I need to go to Terem? So he said to me, yes, you need to go to Terem on Shabbat. Okay, do I need to drive? Is it urgent? Do I need to drive? He said, no, it's not urgent. If you feel like walking up the hill, so you can walk up the hill. So that's what I did. I took a stroller, put the kid inside, and walked up the hill. Got some exercise for Shabbat, right? And go to Terem, and he was fine. But if you know you have time, so you can do Bishul. If not, so do it fast. Even the poskim say, let's say you have a non-Jewish person here and a Jewish person here, and it's urgent. The Jewish person should do it. So everyone would know pikuach nefesh is something important. Don't give it to kids or other people. A rabbi should take and save the lives of people on Shabbat. Okay, that's the first category of someone who's in danger. If we have time today, we'll go back and ask, just that's only if you have time. What happens, let's say we drove someone to hospital. Can we drive back home? Okay, so if we have time, we'll go back to that. The second category is someone who is ill, okay, who's ill. And he's in the bed, okay, he's not in danger. He has a virus, he has COVID, and it's, we know today COVID already isn't so bad for most people. He has this strep or something, okay, he's not in danger, and we know it, okay, we're not in danger. So for him, we don't do any melacha mideoraita. We can do things by a non-Jewish person. So if, let's say, he's in the room and it's the light is bothering him, we can ask a non-Jewish person to turn off the light. Okay, so that's the for someone who isn't in danger, but he's sick.
You can ask them directly to turn off the light.
Yeah, you can ask a non-Jewish person to turn off the light or turn on the air conditioner or something.
I was in the hospital Friday night, turned off the lights at 9 p.m. I was not in danger, but I just bored, and I could have asked the Arab Achot to just.
So for a specific person who's in bed and tied to bed, so you can ask a non-Jewish person to help you, right? And even doing a melacha mideoraita.
Okay.
Yeah, we will learn in just a few minutes that someone who's healthy, even if he's a bit sick, he shouldn't take any medication. And we'll explain in a few moments. But someone who is in bed and is sick, so he can take medication. He can take tablets. No, he can take. He can use tablets or pills or whatever. That's no problem. Okay, so the rule for someone who isn't feeling well, he can ask a non-Jewish person to do for him something. Some poskim say that if it's a non-Jewish person, so even a Jewish person could do for him something which is asur midrabanan. That's for quite a few poskim. Now, the question will be, how do we differentiate between a case of danger and someone who's just not feeling well? How do you differentiate? Sometimes it's very easy to differentiate. He has the virus, he has 38 degrees, 39 degrees. Okay, that's okay. Well, he'll stay in bed for a day or two. It's very easy to differentiate. Okay, that's fine. Sometimes it's a bit hard to differentiate. So what do we do? And maybe the finger rule you say, can you say klal etzba finger rule in English? No, it doesn't work. A bad translation?
Flip a coin.
What? A flip a coin. No, a finger rule is that's the simple rule. Okay. So the principle will be if the sick person himself says I'm in danger, so you can okay, he's in danger, you believe him. If there's a doctor there and he says he's in danger or says I think he's in danger, you can obviously you believe them. Even if it's not a Fruman doctor, but he's a serious doctor and he's in danger, so you believe him. If not, so you ask, what would you do on a regular day? Let's say it's a regular weekday. What would you do? If you rush to hospital and say, okay, I'm running to hospital, so obviously on Shabbat you do the same. And you say, I'll wait a few hours, it's fine, nothing really happens. So also on Shabbat, all of a sudden on Shabbat, it might be in danger. Once my daughter, I was fertilizing plants, I had plants, and I was using iron, and she was helping me. You have iron dust you put in the plants. And I saw her face was red, or the iron face was red here. She was young, I'm not remember. She was 2 or 3 years old. She was helping me. Now, but she was really next to me, so I had my eyes on her. So, but sometimes you put the eye a second, and then it was red around it. Now, I wasn't sure if she ate or she didn't eat it. Okay, but it was a Friday. It had to be a Friday. It was a Friday. It then turned out probably it was just probably the dust or something. Just wind blew and just came to her bed. So she was fine with the end. But if someone eats a bit of it, it's fine. We eat iron. Iron could be good for you. But if you eat too much iron, that's not so good. So what do you do? What if you have it on Shabbat? So I called the hospital, told me, if you aren't sure, come to the hospital. And come to the hospital. We came to the hospital. I came back home, I think, 10 minutes before Shabbat. But Baruch Hashem, I managed to come home 10 minutes before Shabbat. But that's an example of something. On Yom Chol, I would go to hospital. On a regular day, I would go to hospital. Yes. So also on Shabbat, go to hospital. On a regular day, you'll say it can wait a few hours. And now it's already Shabbat day, Shabbat afternoon. So wait a few hours. Okay, that's the typical way to check it. So you can ask the doctor, is it so urgent? So that's what
the thing you have is when a woman is expecting and she thinks she's going into labor, and
yeah,
she thinks she's going to give birth right in the house, and then when you go to
so when a woman is in labor, so the same on a weekday, a woman usually doesn't want to go to hospital too early, usually, okay, but she doesn't want to go to hospital too late. So if it was a weekday, she would go to hospital. Also on Shabbat, go to the hospital. So that's a general rule, and I think it's easier than also the definition. It's like that and that. That's I think the easiest. When I told you I took the kid up to Terem, so it was Friday night. So the doctor told me you can't. If it would have been Shabbat afternoon, so wait. But Friday night you can't wait. You have to do it tonight. Okay, the third category of someone who is not feeling well, and we can go deeper into each one of them, is someone who's מתחזק והולך כבריא. He's feeling, he's healthy, but he has some kind of pain. Okay, some kind of pain. For him, we're quite stringent. We say we can't do anything for him, even by a non-Jewish person. And the reason is there's no danger. He's not even sick. Okay, it's just healthy. So he's becoming healthy already. Okay, let's say yesterday he had 39, a fever of 39. Now he's already 37. He's still a bit weak, but he's fine. So you can't ask a non-Jewish person to do for him something. Not furthermore, in many cases, we'll very soon explain a bit more. You shouldn't take any medication on Shabbat, or you shouldn't start taking medication on Shabbat. Okay. It could be very, very, very common times when someone has a headache. Okay, he didn't drink enough, he had a bad night, and he woke up with a headache. Can they take Tylenol or Acamol or whatever other company on Shabbat? Okay, so Chazal had a decree, a gzera. It's called Mishum Shchikat Samimanim. And in those days, people didn't buy from Costco or from Superstar That's, I think, one of the biggest differences between Israel and the States. So not well, but a very big difference. In the States, you go, you buy this packets of I'm not sure 500 or 1,000 pills of Tylenol, and people use them all the time, which isn't so healthy. And here you have to go to the pharmacy, and the pharmacy you buy it, and you buy a packet of 20, and so can you use it on Shabbat? So today people buy it, but in the olden times people made it. When my wife gave birth to I think it was the fourth child, she decided to be born. That Hashem decided she'll be born around Yom Kippur. So I happened to be in hospital for Yom Kippur, my Shrine, Bnei Brak, Yom Kippur, and then day afterwards, and it took a few days until she was born. She was upside down. Anyway, so we were in hospital for quite a long time. Baruch Hashem, everything was very happy, and we saw Hashem leading us through Yom Kippur. I'm mentioning it because I slept in Yom Kippur. Where would I sleep in the hospital? So we found someone who lived just a few minutes from the hospital, and he had a room next to his house. And his profession or his work was to make all those sort of creams or ointments that he made by himself. And he made it from plants. I'm not sure what he used. But in the olden times, that's how people made the medicines. They went to someone to grind it, I'm not sure, leaves of grass and aloe vera, whatever it is, grind them together and made an ointment. So if people will start using medicines on Shabbat, Chazal said they'll very easily start grinding things. So Chazal said, no medicines on Shabbat. Now, the decree of no medicine on Shabbat is only for the third category. Only when someone is healthy, he's healthy. We have a question argument today. Does this decree also apply for today? When's the last time you took, I'm not sure what it was, and made your own Tylenol? Never. What? You never did it? In all times, that's what everyone did. You took the bone from a chicken and, I'm not sure what they did, but so no one does it today. And the question is, if the mitziut, the way we behave, the way we live changed, does it also change the decree of Chazal? Generally, we say it doesn't change the decree. The decree of Chazal stayed, and it stays there. Sometimes we can be a bit more lenient, but generally speaking, we don't change the decree of Chazal, as it says in Hebrew, batal ta'am lo batla takana. Even if the reason has changed or no cancel, we don't change or cancel the decree itself. This decree is only for someone who is healthy, okay, and only for medication that he is starting to take now. But let's say if he had the strep throat, and he's taking penicillin, right? And for that, you have to take it for 3 days, 7 days, 10 days, depending on whatever the doctor says. After 2 days, he's feeling healthy. He's going for a run. Okay, he can go for a run now. But he started taking it 2 days ago. So Rav Shimon Kluger said that the decree of Chazal is only when he's starting to take the medication now on Shabbat. But if he started to take the medication a few days ago, he can continue taking it on Shabbat. And that's a very, very common question, because if people take penicillin for 7 days, in those 7 days, usually, maybe always, there'll be a Shabbat, right? There'll be a Shabbat in the 7 days. Right, so if he started taking it, so he can continue taking it on Shabbat. The same for when we take different pills that they need to take on a certain day and a certain time, so they can continue taking it on Shabbat. And that's a very important halacha about medicine on Shabbat. Another important halacha, we defined danger. We defined someone who's ill. How do you differentiate between someone who's ill and someone who is walking? Let's say someone he can walk, but his headache is killing him. It's killing him. Okay, he can get to shul and you can see he's standing. It's killing him. So how do you differentiate between them? At least for the question of taking pills on Shabbat, can you take a Tylenol on Shabbat? If it just has a bit of a headache, so he shouldn't take. But if it's really bothering him, someone had he took a tooth out on Friday. He shouldn't do it on Friday, but let's say okay, and now it's painful. Okay, and the pain it's really painful. Can you take a pill on Shabbat? So here we have someone who's mitztaer me'od, someone who's really in suffering, he goes into the definition of someone who's ill. Although he's walking around and since he's really suffering, he can take medication on Shabbat. So he can take a Tylenol or ibuprofen or whatever it is on Shabbat to take the pain down. But here, that brings the question: how do you define really suffering or not? Like many of us can hold pain and we say, okay, it hurts, but we can hold pain. I'm not sure if you did this. I'm sure some of us did the same shtuyot or the same mischief when you were young. But in the army, it was very common for us like to punch each other, yeah, and see who's the first one to say, okay, I can't do it anymore, right? And we used to end up with bruised arms. Now it's painful. You can see her holding like teeth like that, but you wouldn't say it's painful. I can't be the one who comes here. I won't be the weak one, right? So also in pain, how do you define what's really painful and what's not so painful? It's something that's very hard to define. But my mother's a pain doctor, quite a very good pain doctor. You shouldn't need her, but if you need her, she's very good. And I learned from her that pain has a very psychological aspect into it. Different people view pain differently. You talked about giving birth. If you go to hospitals and you can just listen, you can hear it's different cultures. Do the women shout or scream or no? They're silent. It's many times depends on the culture, where they come from. Not always, many times. So Rabbi Eliezer Melamed, he tried to define. Some will say you can't define, but I think it gives us at least an idea. If someone is painful, and we tell him, look, there's no Tylenol here in the house, but up the street, a kilometer from here, we have a friend, he has Tylenol. Would you want to walk up there, or would you want to ask someone to walk up there? If he says, you know what, it's a kilometer, I'll stay here. I'll suffer until Motzei Shabbat. Okay, so don't take that pill. But if he would say, yeah, it's a kilometer, it's walking, but I'm very painful, so you can also take a pill on Shabbat. So that's Rabbi Eliezer Melamed tried to give it to it a very definition that you can measure that definition. Okay, so we defined the three categories of someone who isn't feeling well on Shabbat. And now, since we have a few more minutes, we can go a bit into them. Quite a common question could be air conditioners on Shabbat. Air conditioners on Shabbat. Air conditioners on Shabbat, let's start from the heating. Heating on Shabbat. Can you put heating on Shabbat? Now the question was very strong or very cold or very relevant in Europe, the times of the Rama, where they didn't have air conditioners. They warmed up their house using wood, right? And when it's cold, it's cold. Here in Ma'ale Adumim, I'm not sure what's the lowest temperature you get to. How much is that? 5 degrees maybe? Or 4? We never get to the freezing point, right? In Ma'ale Adumim. But in some places in Europe, you saw the freezing point twice, in the beginning of the winter and the end of the winter. That's when you met the freezing points. It was cold. And there's the rule in halacha, hakol cholin hen etzel tzina. Everyone is considered sick when it gets too cold. That's called of being cold. So they could ask a non-Jewish person to come in the house and light the fire on Shabbat. Okay? Although it's lighting a fire, and we don't ask a Jewish person to light a fire on Shabbat, but we said when there's someone who's not feeling well, and when it's so cold, everyone is considered a chole. You can light a car, even if there's no danger. Okay, everyone will suffer. Once we were in Memphis, so there was an ice storm, and the power down. For 5 days, people were without power. Nothing, no power at all. And some people would just stayed in the house with blankets and coats, and they survived and they were fine. But so they weren't in danger, but it was still considered a kol cholim etzel tzina. You can ask a non-Jewish person to light for you the fire on Shabbat. What about today? Can we also trust it today? So here usually it's not so cold. And also usually just turn on the heating before Shabbat and it will stay on for the whole Shabbat. You can even make sure when it comes on, when it doesn't come when you have the Shabbat clock. So you shouldn't trust this heter of, okay, I'll just ask a non-Jewish person. But occasionally, if it's very cold, and if you forgot to turn on the air conditioner, the heating, and if just there was a problem with the electricity and it fell and the power fell down, you can ask a non-Jewish person if it's very cold, especially if there's older people or children in the house, to turn on the heating on Shabbat. Oh, sorry, that brings the opposite question. Usually it's the opposite, right? Usually it's the opposite. In Ma'ale Adumim, it's usually the opposite. Okay, now for heating, we usually don't say people are considered sick from or be ill from heating, unless it's a very strong heat wave and you're scared of people dehydrating. But otherwise, on a regular summer day in Ma'ale Adumim, you say, okay, you can survive, and it doesn't even bring us to being considered of sick people. Yet there are some people, some poskim, who are makel with asking a non-Jewish person to turn on the air conditioner, especially when it's very hot, and even more if it's in a shul, which means a lot of people are suffering. We have here a tsar of rabim. First, we said it's a bit hard to differentiate what's considered, where do we place the border between being ill and just someone who's fine and just something is bothering him. So it's very, very hot and people are sweating at home, and then it's hard for them to stand at home. That's already comes towards more the side of being ill, right? Mm-hmm. Also, some poskim, it's a machloket, but there are some poskim who say that turning an air conditioner on cooling on Shabbat, maybe also heating, but cooling on Shabbat is an isur d'Rabbanan, it's rabbinical. There are some poskim who say it. Not everyone holds it, but some poskim who hold that way. Second, we have a question here. Now, so Bobby is telling us that the rule of the thumb, the klal etzba. So anyway, that's what happens when you look at the chat only late. Anyway, so since some poskim hold that you can turning on the air conditioner on Shabbat is a d'Rabbanan, it's rabbinical isur. So therefore, there's quite a few poskim who say that if it's a very hot day, and in your house, it's so hot, it's very hard to be in the house. You can ask a non-Jewish person to turn on an air conditioner on Shabbat. Okay? It would be better maybe to ask him to turn it by grama. How do you do by grama? Let's say you have a Shabbat clock. So he turns it on, but in a way, it will turn on only in, let's say, 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So that's already makes it much more of an easier. One more halacha, which we will discuss, we have a few more minutes left, is who can go or who can take the person to hospital on Shabbat. We're going back to a case where a person is in danger. He's in danger. The doctor says he needs to go to hospital now, or in the close time, he needs to go to hospital. So who can take him on Shabbat? If he's in danger, you can take him to, you can drive him on Shabbat. You can drive him on Shabbat to hospital. And who goes with him? Whoever needs to go with him. So if it's a woman who's giving birth, it's very normal today that the woman wants to have with her husband or her mother. Usually we don't see both of them, but one of them, it calms her down. A birth goes much easier when the woman is calm. Not just a pregnant woman, but many people who feel that they're being taken care of, even if it doesn't make a difference. But if they feel that the support of the relative or neighbor helps them, so it many times helps them. We know that psychology has a very big effect on the ability of people to become healthier. So it has a very, very big impact of it. So we can take, not to go over, but if one person who really, really needed by the sick person, he can come with them to hospital on Shabbat. The main question comes by returning back to the house on Shabbat. And here we have two cases. More of an easier case and more of a simple case is a doctor. It's his profession. And he can usually come back on Shabbat. Better to find a non-Jewish driver. According to Shem Talevi, I think he can even drive by himself on Shabbat. And the reason is because if he won't be able to go back on Shabbat, he'll say, you know what, I got the idea. Next time I'm not going. And actually had a story like that. There was a rabbi who taught us, and he said to us, he comes to a frum doctor. There was a case that he had to go to hospital on Shabbat. He usually didn't work on Shabbat, but he had to go to hospital on Shabbat. And he was asked if he can come back. He said, you're a frum doctor, you will be fine. Don't come back on Shabbat. Okay, so he stayed in the hospital on Shabbat. A few weeks later, a very similar question came, and the doctor again needed to come to hospital on Shabbat. He comes to the Rav. Rav says, you can go to hospital, but you can't come back. So the doctor said, you know what? I'm not going. I'm not going. Okay. The halacha, that's what Shevet HaLevi is very makel, or he's machmir pikuach nefesh. Said you can't say such a thing. If the doctor now, he might not come back home and not go to hospital on Shabbat, he can also, because he can't come back, so make him come back on Shabbat. Allow him to come back on Shabbat. That's for a doctor. That's his profession. If it's a person who needs to go to hospital on Shabbat, he doesn't have another case or next time he won't go to hospital. Hopefully he won't have a next time. It's just a neighbor who's helping. It's not a doctor who every week or every month has to go to hospital to treat someone. So if it's just a regular neighbor, a husband of a wife who needs to give birth and turns out she doesn't need to give birth or she gave birth already, they can't go back on Shabbat. In most cases, they can't go back on Shabbat. There was maybe a unique time during COVID where, at least in the beginning of COVID, we were very, very concerned and we didn't want people to stay in hospital. So if a person came to hospital and doesn't have anywhere else to stay around the area, we said to them, just go out of hospital as fast as possible, take a car, take a taxi. We viewed it then as pikuach nefesh. I'm not sure today we will view it also as pikuach nefesh, but that's about going on again. But Hashem should know the halachot and not have to use. Should have a refresh